Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the NBA Outlet Preview Series presented by OTG Basketball. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at OTG Basketball. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me tonight, Harris Wichard. How you doing, Harris?
Pretty good, Nick. Again, excited and looking forward to another episode of our preview series and get this going, and appreciating all the support and listening we're getting from our fans. Be sure to check out our website also at otgbasketball.com. Team 17 tonight, we're looking at the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, the Atlanta Hawks, definitely a lot of changes in the offseason, so we'll touch on that later. I think the Hawks, they probably hit their peak, not last season, but the year before that when they had that 20-plus win streak. And they were just looking great. They had a great season, but it's going to be tough for them to get back to that. So I think 17 is a fair ranking for this team. What about you, Harris?
A lot of potential here because obviously we know about the acquisition of Dwight, and he's going to be wearing number 8. I don't know why, but he's wearing number 8. And so we know the baggage that comes with Dwight Howard, but he's not that old. He came in the league at 18. He's 30, 31 years old. So now that he's back in his hometown, who knows what that could do to Dwight Howard. So if we get a Dwight Howard, not the one we saw in Houston, but the one we saw, perhaps in Orlando or glimpses of what we saw in Orlando, that kind of changes things for them because then that's an upgrade from Horford. If not, it's a downgrade from Horford. But there's potential here. I know Bazemore's a high-energy guy. He got a multi-year deal, undrafted guy from 2012. And, I've always taken a liking to Dennis Schroeder, their backup point guard, who will now probably start with the exit of Jeff Teague.
He's definitely started now.
Yeah, so that's one of the players in the league that I've really come to like a little bit. He's very quick. He's aggressive. He doesn't back down from anybody. You've seen him in several fights and brawls and stuff. So, they have a shot. I mean, still Millsap, still there. Korver's still there. I think they'll make the playoffs, but I don't know really after that what can happen with them.
Yeah, I think they probably could end up making the playoffs. Millsap, probably one of the most underrated players in all the NBA. I think Dwight gives them something they've been missing is that inside presence, rebounding-wise, some real size inside, but he doesn't do all the things that Horford did. Dwight might be, a better inside finisher sometimes, but defensively, Horford did a lot of things. Offensively, he did a lot of things. His skill set, I think he's just a more skilled player than Dwight, so they'll definitely miss that. But with Paul Millsap playing the 4 and him being a very skilled player himself, I think it'll kind of hide that a little bit. But like you mentioned, Schroeder gets a chance to start now. They traded Jeff Teague away. So moving on from that, let's talk about the pick they got. They picked up Taurean Prince, DeAndre Bembry, some young talent added to this team. Going forward, it gives them a piece. Maybe they know they're not going to be a contender this year or next year, but they have guys like Dennis Schroeder, Kent Bazemore to help. They added some young talent around them.
Yeah, Taurean Prince, not to be confused with Tayshaun, is the rookie from Baylor, 6'8", 220, good size. Played well in the summer league, averaged 13 a game in 3 games, and he stretches out a little bit. He shot 37% from the floor. Obviously, that has to be improved, but it was good to see him shoot 93% from the line at 5 free throw attempts a game, and he rebounded well. So I think he's going to slide right in there and play 15, 20 minutes a game, and he's got good size, and he'll spell the minutes for Millsap a little bit. They'll probably, like we said, they'll start Schroeder. They'll have Korver at the 2. And their 3 is probably up for grabs. Bazemore could start, but he's only 6'5".
No,
he's only 6'5".
Bazemore will start.
If Bazemore starts and Korver is going to start also, or they'll probably start Sevolosha at the 3.
Yeah, they could. I mean, I think Bazemore's definitely starting. I think they'll probably go Schroeder, Bazemore, Korver, Millsap, Dwight.
Or if they want more size, because Korver's 6'7", can't really go. Korver struggles sometimes guard to 3. You'll see Sefolosha, but. Yeah. Jared Jack off the bench, Mike Muscala off the bench, Mike Scott off the bench, Tiago Splitter off the bench. They're a little deeper than I initially thought.
Well, you mentioned it. Let's talk about it. Some of the additions. They picked up Dwight Howard, who we talked about. We'll talk about him a little bit more. They also had a sneaky signing in Jared Jack. I think they got him for a veteran minimum. Jack's coming off a torn ACL, but he's a really well-liked player across the NBA. A favorite teammate of many. He gives you that leadership, and he gives you some instant scoring off the bench. Sometimes he's a black hole with the ball, but he can give you that scoring punch like he did against Atlanta in the playoffs on the Nets. So I think they got a nice signing in him. What do you think about the
thing I like about Jared Jack is that, he was on that Warrior team in 2013 too that initially made that splash into the playoffs, but he's not afraid of the big moment. And you always need a guy like that because if you're the leading scorer on this team will probably be Millsap, but you need a guy in the fourth quarter that if Schroeder's out of the game or Howard's in foul trouble or Korver doesn't have it going that night, that with a couple of ticks on the clock or even a couple minutes left in the game, that's going to look to be aggressive. And Jarrett Jack has always been that guy throughout the course of his NBA career.
For better or for worse, he definitely has been that guy. And, he does have the ability to get hot and hit those tough shots like you talked about. And he's hit a few game winners on the net. So it could definitely be a nice little veteran to the bench for the Hawks. But let's talk about –
They have some veterans. I mean, Millsap's been in the league 10 years, Korver 13, Jarrett 11, Jarrett Jack 11, Chris Humphries 12, Dwight Howard 12, Saad Volosha 10. So bringing in some new pieces, but also some tremendous experience on this team. I think they'll do enough to at least get into the playoffs.
Yeah, that playoff team, right? Let's talk a little bit about Dwight. We mentioned him before. They lost Al Horford and they're going with Dwight. This is a guy who's really struggled since his Orlando days. He had that whole issue for trying to force a trade and whatnot. And then he gets sent to the Lakers. Didn't work out on the Lakers. He plays the Lakers 1 year. Then he ends up in Houston. Doesn't work out in Houston. There's been a lot of talk about him and James Harden never getting along and both of them trying to get each other traded. So it seems like issues follow Dwight. Dwight's kind of tried to come out and show people another side of him that, he's not this bad a guy. What do you think of Dwight? Do you think, going back to his hometown Atlanta, that he's going to get back in his career and, have a good season?
Dwight Howard has not had the thick skin that he's needed to have to become a dominant center in this league. In Orlando, he was a dominant center. When he went to the Lakers, that was a very bad situation for him because he was not used to dealing anybody like Kobe Bryant, and he was also injured. When he went to Houston to play alongside James Harden, that was a disaster because that team was so bad defensively that it exposed Howard a little bit too. But his health has been a little bit of a concern, but he's still been able to rebound the basketball for the most part. I mean, last year he averaged 11. He's been in double figures in every single season in his NBA career. His points and shots have been way down, obviously, but even in Orlando, the most shots he averaged in a game were 13. Last year was his worst offensive season. But if you get him a couple more touches, keep him involved, his blocks will always be there. He's going to average a little bit more defensively probably this year, but Dwight did play 32 minutes a game and 71 games last year. So Dwight's going to be there. He's going to be in the middle. He's going to clog the paint. He's a big dude. He's 6'11", 7 feet, 270. He's going to be there. And I think this is the right move for him now because he had some success in Orlando. LA wasn't the right fit. Houston wasn't the right fit. I think Atlanta's a good place for him right now.
Yeah, and they obviously wanted him. They went after him and they signed him pretty early in free agency. So I think this is a good opportunity for him, and this is his best chance to, get back on track. And like you said, you keep him involved. He's even mentioned, I think, in an interview before that when he doesn't get the ball as much, he becomes less engaged. And you want to keep him engaged so he's active defensively. I don't think he's the elite athlete he once was after the injuries to his back, but he's still athletic enough to block plenty of shots and have an impact on the game, especially when he's running the floor. When he gets the ball inside, it's an easy dunk long as he's healthy.
Yeah, you know what? He really seems to care about the community. He's always got a smile on his face. And some people have said that, that's a negative, but he really enjoys the game. And, this guy has got a bad rep around the league and being soft and stuff of that nature. But, this is one of those guys, a freak athlete. If he's healthy, all bets are off. This team could be a lot better. I think we're expecting Dwight to be more so the LA Houston Dwight than the Orlando Dwight. But if he's closer to the Orlando Dwight, all bets are off. This Hawks team could be the real deal.
Yeah, no, if he's closer to the Orlando Dwight, this will be a very good team. And, they could end up with a top 5 seed maybe in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Right. But I think I'm kind of expecting like that mediocre Dwight. I think some nights early on he'll show it. But if things start to not work out as well, he could easily go back to that Laker or Houston Rocket Dwight.
Yeah, only 30 years old, turning 31 in December. So, a lot still left, I think, for him. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they start the year, who they feature more. Without Horford now, without Teague, those are two mainstays, and the departures that we've mentioned. So Tim Hardaway Jr., Bazemore, Korver, Schroeder, Jack. There's going to be other guys stepping up. It's going to be very interesting. I'm intrigued to see what happens in Atlanta.
Yeah, this should be an interesting team. You mentioned it, some of the departures. They lost Al Horford and Jeff Teague, Kirk Heinrich as well, Lamar Patterson, but I think losing Horford is going to definitely have an impact. If Dwight plays really well, they won't miss it as much. But Horford did a lot for this team. He was a playmaker from the center position. He could handle the ball. He could pass the ball. He could shoot the ball. He could score inside. He could create a little bit. And defensively, he played great. He was a great help defender. I think his impact defensively wasn't noticed maybe as much just because he's not a huge shot blocker. So I think they'll definitely miss Horford. There's no way around it. And as a leader.
Yeah, like I said, Howard is going to be – he's going to be what he is. I mean, we expect him to be a little bit better than he was the last couple seasons, but Horford will be missed. Horford plays very hard every night. He stretches the floor, even got his 3-ball going a little bit. He's active. He's vocal, kind of like a little bit of a Joakim Noah as vocal and leadership for the Hawks that they're going to miss for sure.
Yeah, he's just, a good all-around basketball player. Like, he's a skilled player, and that's what you like to see. Jeff Teague, it was a matter of time before Dennis Schroeder or Jeff Teague was traded. Foreign trade rumors, so you knew one of them was going to be on the way out. It made no sense to have both of them. They have similar games, and you can't play them both together, so kind of figured that was going to happen. What do you think about the Jeff Teague move?
I like Schroeder better than Teague, so I think Schroeder is going to be I would say borderline all-star, but he's going to play a lot better this year than people think. He's capable of scoring 20 a night in this league.
Yeah, no, I think he'll have a better season. I don't know if he'll average 20 a night, but I think given the keys and, he's now the starting point guard and given all those minutes, you'll definitely see some nice numbers from him. Jeff Teague is a weird type of player, and like when they had that really good season, when they were the top seed and whatnot, like he looked like he was an all-star, and he was like, he was so hard to defend. He was so quick, and he just ready to go, and he was hitting the 3-ball. Then last year and then in the playoffs, he just kind of like fell off. And like he's so inconsistent, and at times he's like misses easy layups, and it's like frustrating to watch. I could only imagine as a Hawks fan. So kind of made sense that they departed with him.
And think about Schroeder, only played 20 minutes a game last year and averaged 11 a game. So he's one of those guys, if you give him 30, 35 minutes, he's going to average north of 16 points a game.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of potential. We haven't seen a ton of him, so the more we see, the better. But talking about that, who needs to step up on this Hawks team this year?
Well, outside of Dwight, because we spent so much time talking about him, I'm going to say Millsap. I'm going to say Paul Millsap's got to take another step. I mean, we know he's actually not that young. Millsap has been in the league for a while, but
contract year too.
31 years of age and played 32 minutes in 81 games last year. So he averaged 17, which is near his career high. He's still very active, and he needs to take another step. If him and Dwight could be a nice complement to one another, and some of the nice young backcourt talent that they have, this could be a pretty solid basketball team. But Millsap has got to take another step and fill in the void that Horford left. And if Dwight can't fill in, this is a guy that's had a chip on his shoulder for most of his career. He's always kind of played angry. It was a second-round pick of the Jazz in 2006. So he had good years with the Jazz, and he's had even better years with the Hawks. So 3 times in a row been an all-star with the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, last year, I mean, his season really went under the radar. I think statistically, like the advanced metrics, like Paul Millsap was off the charts. So he provides the team some great defense as well as offense. He's a skilled player as well. I think maybe not on his on-court production because I think he performed great last season. But I think as a leader, he could step up, especially with the Horford departure. I'm gonna spotlight Kyle Korver. Last year he had an off season. He was returning from injury, and he really didn't give him that knockdown 3-point shooter. That guy that really forces the defense to stretch. He wasn't quite that guy last season. When he plays at a high level like that, and he's knocking down a 3 and he's hitting those fadeaway threes even, he just gives them another element to their offense because that player is literally glued to his hip. So that's one less help defender. So I think he could step up. And the other wing guy, Kent Bazemore, got the big contract this offseason, continued to add to his game, add to his skill set and become that great all-around basketball player.
Yeah, Korver is going to have a better year shooting the basketball. In 15, he had one of the better shooting seasons you'll see from 3, but he just needs to be a little bit better, and I think he will be. I think they're going to figure this thing out and move in the right direction, but I think Millsap is the guy that I'm looking forward to having a really great season.
Yeah, I enjoy watching Paul Millsap. Talking about the Hawks, better or worse than last season?
They won 44 games last year. 48. They're going to be a little worse, but I still think they're a top 6 team in the East, top 7. I'd say they're going to be 4 or 5 games worse, but I still think they're going to make the playoffs, but a little bit worse than last year, but still a playoff basketball team.
Yeah, I think they still probably make the playoffs, but I think they get a little bit worse just swapping Horford for Dwight.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you don't really know what you're getting with Dwight, like we
And
mentioned.
Teague out.
And Teague,
And Teague out.
he's a talented player, even though he's inconsistent. That's still another guy. They did add some nice pieces though, so and they got a little bit younger, which is always good.
Absolutely.
What's your final prediction for this team?
44-38 and the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference.
I think I'll have them in the playoffs as well. I think I'll have them in that 8th or 7th seed most likely. So I think we're pretty even on this team. You got me a little bit hyped up when you're talking about their depth, but I'm just scared of Dwight. Like you really just don't know what you're going to get out of him. And I don't even know. They probably would start Splitter if Dwight had a serious injury or anything like that, who isn't a bad player, but he's got his own injury problems as well. He's hardly playing any games.
I'll tell you what, I will watch them because Bazemore and Hardaway are 2 guys that bring a lot of energy, especially Schroeder in his new and increased role. And Dwight coming in, I will definitely tune in. I know that's one of your questions. I definitely will tune into the Hawks on League Pass.
Yeah, no, I'm going to catch the Hawks game just because I'm intrigued. I also like Jarrett Jack. Like I mentioned before, he's a well-liked guy around the league, and you just kind of like the attitude he has and the personality, so I always root for him. And I like Kent Bazemore as well. It'll be interesting to see. We haven't mentioned this on the show yet. They did lose assistant coach Kenny Atkinson, new head coach of the Nets. He was a big guy in player development, so see if that has any impact. But overall, I think
head coach is still
Mike Budenholzer.
Yeah.
So part of that Spurs coaching tree. So he's going to make the most of his team, and I think the Hawks they could be a little bit better than we've mentioned.
They get 15 nationally televised games, so that's usually around the average. So, but they do have a couple more ESPN games than most teams do, like 4 or 5, and then some TNT and NBA TV games. But I always take a look at who they start off against and can they get off to a quick start. They definitely can. They get Washington, Sacramento, Philly, LA, Houston. So Philly, and then the Knicks and New Orleans. So definitely an opportunity for them to start off pretty well. They avoid that West Coast trip until the end of November. I know that the scheduling, and I know how you feel about this. The NBA likes to schedule a lot of these East teams to go West early in the year, and that could be tough right off the bat.
Yeah, it could be tough, but also could be beneficial. You don't have to go there late in the season. You really need the rest of the playoffs.
That's true.
Yeah, so, it works both ways, just like kind of anything. I'll say this. On to our next segment, one of our favorites, the truth emoji today for the Hawks. I'm going to go with the bullseye because I think for this team to get back, to playing at a high level, they need people to step up as shooters for that passing, spacing offense. For it really to be effective, guys have to knock down the 3-ball.
Yeah, and if that happens, it's going to open up a lot for Dwight.
And Dwight will be able to space the floor as well. You don't only space the floor at the 3-point line, but if you have a big guy in the post, he's bringing guys right into him, especially if he's dominant.
Right. If him and Millsap could play that 1-2 like him and Horford did, and Dwight could find his game again, Korver's going to benefit from it. Schroeder doesn't shoot a ton of threes, but he can make them. Hardaway, Bazemore. This is a team that if Howard is Dwight Howard from Orlando, they can win 50+. If he's the guy we probably think he's going to be, like we said, they're probably a 6 to an 8 seed in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, so a lot of this Hawks season depends on Dwight Howard. You kind of have an idea what you're getting with the other guys, but Dwight's going to be the make or break for this team. And, the Hawks, I think the Hawks think that they're going to get good Dwight. They got him in his hometown. They paid him that big contract, so see what happens. But that wraps it up for the Hawks. Oh, go ahead, Harris.
No, it's going to be – I just think it's going to be a really interesting year, and it's just intriguing to see when you get a big man swap like that, especially a guy in his hometown. It's going to be real interesting to see how Dwight responds to the hometown crowd.
Yeah, who knows? We could even get some extra energy and heart from Dwight. That's been something that's kind of been talked about in the past. He gets a little bit lazy, not engaged, but if he's playing in front of his hometown, I'm sure he'll have a lot of family and friends in the stands. That does impact you as a player. So be interesting to watch. Definitely keep an eye on the Hawks this season. That wraps it up for this episode. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Be sure to check us out next time.
Guys, moving on to Team 16. Appreciate all the support and continue our preview series. Be sure to check out Twitter at OTG Basketball. Have a great night.